George Friedman, the founder of Stratfor and the author of The Next Decade, a best-selling new book. George, you're skeptical about the impact of Twitter and Facebook on political events in the Middle East. Why?
Well, first, we've had a lot of revolutions before Twitter. 1989 and the complete collapse of Eastern Europe, 1979 and the Islamic Revolution, 1848. I mean, revolutions
1848? There really was an 1848?
Yeah, and it swept all of Europe, and it transformed everything and set the stage for the First World War, and it was a big thing, and it was all the papers. But the interesting thing was they didn't have Twitter. Twitter is a wonderful tool for the secret police to find revolutionaries. If I'm the secret police, I want everybody to Twitter and Facebook. And that's what's happened in Saudi Arabia, for example. Because what you do there is there's no conspiracy. It's all open, it's all public. And that's what everybody celebrates, including the police who go and arrest the people who did it.
So you don't see Twitter then as helping the revolution?
I think that Twitter can help, it can hurt. On the whole, if I'm a revolutionary and I'm planning a demonstration, I don't think I'm going to post it 2 days in advance for the police to be there. In countries like Iran, it had very little impact during their 2009 revolution. It was put down. And the other problem is there's a tremendous amount of Twittering coming from outside the country. One of the amusing things about the Iranian revolution in 2009 is all the Twittering was in English. Given the fact that Iran speaks Farsi, that was interesting. Where does it come from? Who's doing it? I mean, one of the things that this technology has made possible is that people completely outside the country can spoof themselves as being inside the country and give a false impression of what's going on.
What about the role of Facebook, particularly in Egypt?
Well, in Egypt, it allowed the demonstrators to rally. But remember, the army wanted them to rally. The army wanted Hosni Mubarak out of power. The way the revolution ended was with a three-man junta in place in Egypt, suspension of the constitution, suspension of parliament. And remember also that the Egyptian revolution was very small. There was never more than about 300,000 people demonstrating. The really interesting thing in a revolution is not who's demonstrating, but going to the people who aren't demonstrating. It's not nearly as photogenic and exciting, but the fact was that the vast majority of Egyptians didn't participate in this, and a lot of Egyptians deeply resented the people as kind of university students, and as we know from our own societies, university students not necessarily highly representative of the people.
So you're saying that the Egyptian revolution was essentially hijacked from above by a new junta, a new group of generals?
No, it was created by them.
So it was a staged event, the whole thing?
To a great extent. I mean, a lot of the people were sincere in the streets. But the military had been demanding that Hosni Mubarak leave power for well over a year. They didn't want his son, Gamal, to take over. Hosni Mubarak wouldn't leave because he had a tremendous amount of money that he could lose. That was very dangerous for him to leave. So he stayed in power. When the demonstrators first gathered together, the police attacked them. The army intervened to protect the demonstrators. And you can see some scenes on videos, on satellites, where the army is holding open the plaza so that people can get in safely. They wanted that They wanted that demonstration. It wasn't a revolution, it was a demonstration. And they used it to get rid of him. And immediately after getting rid of him, they imposed a military government, and the crowd cheered. It was really weird reading the Western press.
Why do you think the West has become so euphoric about what's happening in the Middle East?
Because their ignorance is breathtaking. And every time they see people Twittering, they see, oh, they want to be just like us. There's this weird belief in the West that if you own an iPod, you become a liberal.
So you mean if I got one of these?
If you got one of these, then you must be absolutely a left-winger just waiting to make a revolution. There's a kind of lack of understanding of the fact that technology can be used in many ways by many people, and the limits of it, and how few people were using it. But we want to always imagine that there's an uprising whose ultimate goal is not only democracy, but constitutionalism. Sometimes you get a democracy like the Iranian one, and they elect the Ayatollah. It's a very complicated world out there, and we want it in sound bites.